political discourse. It existed. Even on Twitter, even on social media, as someone who's been there for a really long time, I can tell you personally from my own experience, in 2012, not one of Mitt Romney's supporters harassed me, trolled me, called me a name, called me a libturd, sent me a meme of a frog dressed like a Nazi. That started in 2015 and 2016. To this day, Joe, I get trolled by Trump supporters every single day, all day.
Right.
Who continue to push the big lie of election fraud and everything else because it's a comfortable narrative to stay in.
So as far as laying out all the facts, though, if it was the cleanest election ever, why wouldn't we be seeing the facts being rubbed in our faces every day? Why are we fighting?
Because once an election is over, we live.
Why is there so much fighting going on against the results of the full forensic audits?
Because Donald Trump
when there's
wouldn't...
widespread discrepancy. So you have less than a 12,000 margin of victory in Georgia with just the national change of address database alone.
Right.
We get over that hump in Georgia, and that's just in one county. There's chain of custody issues in all the other ones. We saw 30,000 ballots that have a chain of custody issue in Maricopa County alone. That's not even getting into the other ones. Same issues in Wisconsin with permanently confined status, Pennsylvania consent decree issues, and chain of custody issues. Why don't we just go back and fully adjudicate it all? Why not?
Because that's not what we do with the states that you're talking about are the critical battleground states that he had to win, and he didn't.
But the margin of error was so small there.
It's still it's the same margin of error. It's the same
or margin of victory. I'm sorry.
It's the same electoral college votes as he won with in 2016. So if it's the same numbers from he beat Hillary Clinton by a certain amount of electoral college
I'm
votes.
okay if you don't go back to 2016 too.
No. I'm just saying.
I mean, like,
what's the difference? If we say Joe Biden won by landslide with the same exact numbers that Donald Trump won over Hillary Clinton in 2016 using the same verbiage, why isn't it the same?
Why wouldn't we look at any discrepancies? If there was discrepancies with Trump winning in 2016,
we didn't say that.
But that shocked the system.
We didn't say
because
that.
Because no one thought that Trump was going to win.
That's true. And at this point, though, never before in history has anyone spent 10 months
right.
fighting the results of an election.
In 16, Washington State's different because we've always done the mail-out ballots.
Right.
In 16, you had states voting to in the ways that they had voted for several years before. In 2020, because of COVID, we shotgunned through the massive mail-out, unsolicited ballots.
It was the same amount. People who vote by mail, I've always voted by mail the whole 20 years I've been living here. My vote didn't change, my ballot didn't change, nothing changed. They've never been able to prove fraud through vote by mail, ever before.
They've never been given the venue to do so.
They've also never had a candidate fight so hard against the results of an election before.
But this is
never. Every single candidate in history prior to Donald Trump said, I will accept the results of the election, and did so. Did not walk that back, did not try to fight it, and did not spend the next 10 months of their lives continuing to fight it. Everybody continues to look forward. So let's move on from this and talk about a local issue that is incredibly scary and important. Just last Friday, we saw the Proud Boys cause lockdowns at 3 local Vancouver public schools. There's obviously the huge fight over the mask mandates and the vaccines. Having the Proud Boys take over this issue and insert themselves into the masking debate, the vaccine debate, to have them show up en masse after January 6th to local events here, to roam the streets of Portland with paintball guns and other weapons, assaulting regular citizens. And they're getting more and more emboldened because they think that Donald Trump wants them to act like this. When they are going into our schools with zip ties to tie up principals because they don't agree with putting masks on children. By the way, and the kids are all fine with the masks. It's the parents who are fighting, which I really don't understand because I think we want to protect our children. These are the people who are going to come out and support you. How do you feel about, what do you think about the Proud Boys who are known to be violent? We're just talking about the Proud Boys and Patriot Prayer. These are the people who are showing up for Donald Trump on January 6th. They're showing up for him in Olympia and harassing and putting their hands on a female journalist and knocking her to the ground and spraying her with bear mace. They are really overstepping. There's a way to protest peacefully and within the law, but they're overstepping the law now, and they're taking the law into their own hands, and we're not seeing local law enforcement doing anything to protect the citizens.
It's almost like we need really, really strong law enforcement.
So I don't agree that we need to defund the police. What I think we need to do is retrain the police, re-educate them, and have them learn how to treat everybody with more compassion on a one-on-one. But what I am talking about is the groups, the large groups of Proud Boys, roaming, marauding, threatening, intimidating, when kids just want to go to school. Kids just want to go to school and learn. So these are the people that are going to show up for you repeatedly every time that you're in public to intimidate people. So is that the presence you want following you as you campaign?
I want peaceful people that are just out there to hear my message and to ask me questions. Pretty much every venue I do, it's like this. I take questions from people. By and large, people are usually a supporter, so it's more of softball questions. But,
yeah, I don't play softball.
Yeah, no. But I mean, I like taking interviews from pretty much whoever.
Good.
So, I mean, I don't want anybody at my events that's going to act violent in any kind of way. So, I mean, that's easy.
Okay, so today at your rally, if you see a presence like that, and you see them acting aggressively, are you going to say anything? Are you going to ask them to stand down? Are you going to ask them to be respectful and supportive, and let them know that violence is not the way?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Do you think that's going to do anything?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I think some of them would listen. But I mean, if they're at my rally, like, I'm not going to go run around and follow any place that there's like the Proud Boys.
No, I know that, but like.
But if they're at my rally, then yeah, of course.
One of the things that we're seeing though is there's the group mentality, the group think, but now you're kind of losing it. I mean, over the vaccines and the mask mandates, Donald Trump at his Alabama rally encouraged everyone there to get vaccinated.
Trump definitely
and they booed him.
Right.
What happens when you start losing that? If your crowd supports you, supports Trump. I was under the impression that what he said was, that was it. That was the word. Donald Trump says, I'm vaccinated, get vaccinated, and the crowd boos him.
Yeah.
What does that tell you about losing your base?
Well, that says there's an erosion of public trust. I mean,
what happens if they're not trusting him anymore?
I know folks that work with the vaccines. I know folks that worked on Operation Warp Speed, and that was done to give people the option of the vaccine so we could get back to normal as soon as possible. There was never supposed to be any kind of government compulsion. And I think the fact that we've caught the government lying in so many different things about COVID.
What do you think they've lied about as far as COVID goes?
The origins of COVID, for one. I mean, it was illegal almost. It was bad form about a year ago. You could be banned from social media for saying, like, the Chinese Communist Party sent this from a lab, right? I mean,
because that's not really.
But now we can say, like, oh, the lab leak. Okay,
you can say there was an accident and the other thing is, I think focusing on how it began is a distraction from how we're dealing with it now.
Well, except for when we have people that know what the origins were because they were providing NIH funds. They're the same guys that are supposed to be the ones giving us all the guidance. That's where the public trust breaks down, because now we see most of it is Fauci trying to cover up for what he was doing with gain-of-function research.
Well, you also have to understand that a virus changes and mutates, and when science changes and mutates, our reaction to it, the way we adapt to it, has to change. So it's not going to be one thing. I mean, this is always going to be a pen. It always should be used as a pen, but it could be used as something else. Viruses adapt and change. We have to adapt and change to it, just like as humans, we have to adapt and change things that happen, climate change,
but the way those in power have gone crazy with these lockdowns, these draconian lockdowns, even some of the reasonable requests that have come, especially when Trump's like, I got vaccinated, I think you should get vaccinated, no compulsion whatsoever, I think you should. He gets booed because people have been living, especially in this state, under guys like Jay Inslee, who have just locked the economy down, taken away people's ability to send their kids to school, taken away people's ability to like open their business. But then at the same time, you see the elites on both sides of the aisle, how much they've gained, how much Amazon's gained, how much Walmart's gained. You look at the discrepancy between what has happened to the working class with their jobs and what's happened to the very, very wealthy. And so there's going to be a good deal of distrust in general. I think most of like the way our government is founded is we have to have trust in our elected officials.
Absolutely.
And so when you're saying like, well, people aren't even listening to what Trump's saying anymore. Like, well, yeah, because people are mad. People are mad at folks in authority, and I get it. And it's leading us to a dark and dangerous place.
Where do you think it's leading us?
I think it's leading us that people are not going to be happy with anyone that's governing them because there's just been so many lies.
So do you think that the current administration is invested in saving lives?
No,
You don't think so?
I do not.
You don't think that Joe Biden cares about the American people and about saving lives?
Which Joe Biden are we talking about here?
We're talking about the president, Joe
I
Biden.
don't think Joe Biden's all there, so I don't think he's running much.
Every accusation is a confession. When you have a guy like Trump next to a guy like Joe Biden, you can say a lot of things. But one thing that you cannot say about Joe Biden is that he does not have compassion. He is certainly a compassionate human being and has demonstrated his compassion repeatedly.
I can 100% say he's not a compassionate human being. He was checking his watch as we were bringing 13 dead service members off the tarmac at Dover.
No, that doesn't mean he wasn't fully there. And he has lost a son.
I've been to Dover. I've watched my wife come off there.
Right.
The
Do you think
Commander-in-Chief,
Trump really cares? Do you think he really cares?
He held it together long enough that day, and I do think he really cares because I've met with plenty of leaders.
Don't you think that Trump maybe only cares about his photo ops? The photo op.
He wasn't looking at his watch, and
Doesn't
the other guy was.
Glancing at your watch to see what time it is a normal human
because with
behavior. It's a normal human behavior.
No, not as flag draped coffins are coming off. Trust me, I've been doing the flag draped coffin thing for my entire adult life.
Is it normal human behavior to hold the Bible upside down for a photo opportunity?
Who cares about that?
Religious conservatives should care about that.
That wasn't dead Americans.
600,000 dead Americans under the Trump administration because of COVID. We could go around in circles and talk about all of those
You're
numbers.
asking me is Joe Biden compassionate? And
I think Joe Biden is a compassionate human being. He helped write the Violence Against Women Act. That is steeped in compassion.
He is a career bureaucrat and a career establishment politician.
That doesn't mean he can't be compassionate to human beings.
100% it does.
No, I don't. To hold a moment of silence in front of the nation, that's compassion.
For what?
For the people that we lost in Afghanistan, for the 13. He held a moment of silence for them in front of the nation. He has cried in front of the nation because he lost his son in the military. He has compassion. What I feel is lacking from the other side is the acknowledgement that the Democrats can do anything good. We can acknowledge when a Republican does something good. I can acknowledge that Jamie Herrera Butler stood up and put country before party and voted for the second impeachment and told the truth about January 6th. I can also stand up and say I don't like the way she votes 80 to 90% of the time. I can say that I've seen her act compassionately. I'm capable of doing that. I think it's important to address the reality of what is right in front of us instead of trying to create a false narrative. I grew up in New Jersey in the 70s and 80s. Never once have I seen Donald Trump express anything that seems like compassion. Not even...
I don't think you saw him in the circumstances that I saw him.
Well, I did because I watched him. I watched the footage of him. He's greeting people at Dover and the three other times.
Were you there in the room?
I've never been in a room with Donald Trump, but I have certainly been watching him for quite some time.
There's a difference between people like Joe Biden who've been doing this for years. He voted for the Iraq War. He voted for every single surge that we did. He knew. He's on record right now saying he knew what we were doing in Afghanistan in 2010 was absolutely a waste of time. While he was in power, he did absolutely nothing to get us out of there. He could have had us out sooner under the deal that Trump negotiated. And then he's just watching more flag draped caskets come off of the bird in
How
Dover.
would you have...
He's a career bureaucrat. This is just another day at the office for him.
How would you have liked to have seen the withdrawal from Afghanistan go when, traditionally, America has never been able to withdraw successfully from a war we've lost? You look at Vietnam, we did not leave that country nicely. There was never going to be a great time, a great way to get out of Afghanistan, not with the Taliban still attacking our forces. So, if Trump had such a great plan, how come he didn't execute it before he left office? How come he didn't execute it before the election?
So he attempted to. In the summer of 2020, the Russian bounties narrative, remember that resulted in another bipartisan vote to keep our troops in Afghanistan to prevent Trump from being able to pull our troops out. Trump, from a position, here's where I do agree with you. There was going to be no great time to leave Afghanistan. I've been saying for quite some time, the day after we leave Afghanistan, the Taliban comes back. Whether that was 5 days ago or whether that was 15 years ago, that was going to happen. That's the history of that country. Anything else is just a neoconservative, neoliberal, think tank fantasy engineered by the military-industrial complex to make a bunch of money off of. But a year ago, what Trump did leading up to that was he, from a position of strength, negotiated a deal with the Taliban that said, we are going to get our people out of here. You're not going to attack us. The results don't lie. We had over a year of no Americans killed by Taliban fire. We had some insider threat attacks, which speaks to the way that we botched this migrant crisis right now. But we had a deal because Trump negotiated that deal from a position of strength. He had just crushed the Islamic Caliphate in Iraq and Syria. He did that. He killed Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. And then, as our embassy was attacked in Baghdad, he killed Qasem Soleimani and Abu Mahdi Mohandas. These terrorists, they were considered to be of such high status that Bush and Obama were scared to go after them. They messed up our embassy there, so Trump killed them, and then Trump said to the Taliban, look, you know I mean business. I want our guys out of here. We'll get our guys out of here next year. Don't mess with them. Because that would have worked out favorably for Trump in the 2020 election. The military-industrial complex, the intelligence community, all leaked to all their little cohorts on both sides of the aisle to create this narrative that there was Russian bounties. This was part of the Russian collusion narrative, right? If Trump pulled out, this would have somehow been like some massive win for Putin. So our troops remained there, right? It's ridiculous. It's absurd. So our troops remained there, and then after that, Trump negotiated a separate deal. It said, hey, by May of 21, our guys will be out. Biden came in. If he would have adhered to that and not announced when he came in that we're going to push it to September 11th, he wouldn't have given the Taliban 3 months of prime fighting season. It's a mountainous country. They need that fighting season time to plan, and that's exactly what they did.
But also Trump negotiated the release of 5,000 Taliban prisoners, one of whom is now the president of Afghanistan. So how is that okay?
Yeah, at the end of the war, you negotiate prisoner deals. That's what you do.
That's 5,000 Taliban terrorist prisoners were freed, though. That's
so right,
5,000
of them. If that would have gotten all of our guys out safely, you free those 5,000. What's in Afghanistan that matters? We can bomb it at will, and it doesn't matter then. We let them go. We know where they are. They break the deal. Then we have a reason. The deal was always just a fig leaf to go back and strike anyways.
But why were we negotiating with terrorists to begin with when America's not supposed to negotiate with terrorists? Why was he negotiating with the Taliban?
We always negotiate.
Why would he invite the Taliban to Camp David?
We always negotiate with terrorists.
But we don't invite the Taliban to Camp David. We don't do that. And we don't let Vladimir Putin sit at the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, and he let him do that. Do you know what the optics of Vladimir Putin at the Resolute desk with Donald Trump standing behind him?
Not as bad as the optics of Hunter Biden making billions.
Hunter Biden's not an elected official.
Off of Ukraine.
Hunter
and
Biden
of the
is
Chinese
not an elected official.
When he's flying on Air Force 2, those optics are pretty bad.
Well, when you're the child of the president and you're not given... Hunter Biden is a private citizen. Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Ivanka Trump, we could talk about them because they were all given some kind... I mean, Ivanka was made an advisor with no government experience. Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump and Ivanka are all being investigated in New York for
They weren't consultants for Burisma or the Chinese Communist Party.
Neither was Hunter Biden. Anyway, let us move on. One of the things that I have discovered in researching you is that occasionally, I'm not saying all the time, occasionally, you'll dip into the QAnon conspiracy stuff. You've got Mike Flynn supporting you now. He is Captain QAnon. We have him on video reciting the QAnon pledge instead of the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States. One of the things, and I've heard you talk about the Save the Children. Which children need to be saved, and who do they need to be saved from?
Any child that's in a bad situation should be saved from bad people. You got to be more specific. What do you mean?
Because I've heard you talk about that QAnon has this whole Save the Children thing. QAnon seems to believe that the entire Democratic Party is filled with lizard people that kidnap babies and drink their blood, and JFK Jr. has been hiding out in Pennsylvania for 20-something years, and all of that cuckoo banana stuff.
Sure.
But the thing about kids I find fascinating because Mr. Gates has an open investigation currently in Florida regarding his behavior around teenagers.
It's not open anymore.
There's an FBI investigation that Joel Greenberg is cooperating with the FBI right now.
You got to ask Matt Gaetz about that. But the person that made the accusation against him is now.
But there's all of this stuff around kids. Marjorie Taylor Greene talks about it. All of this. You're all worried about pedophiles. There's a lot of Republicans who've been charged with a lot of sexual predatory crimes. But this QAnon thing about Save the Children. What is that? Like, you talk about if a child is in danger, what children are in danger, and who's endangering them, and what is it that QAnons think, or the Republicans think, they need to be saved from?
I feel like you got to be more specific. Like, give me something specific that I said. Like, because here's my issue with QAnon. Like, I had never even heard of QAnon before all the January 6th stuff.
Really?
The problem with actually probably leading up to January 6th, I had heard of QAnon. Because here's the problem with QAnon. There is massive amounts of fraud and legitimate claims of election fraud. A lot of the QAnon people went off on these rants about like secret firefights that happened in Germany and all this like comic book cartoon bullcrap that distracted from very real work that was being done. So it's fine, people can have their internet clubs all they want, but they need to stay out of like the actual serious business of adjudicating the elections and coming up with strategies to take our country back. So
did you just denounce QAnon then?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
That's easy. I mean,
but like people who believe in QAnon also support Donald Trump, also support MAGA. That's you.
Trump also said get vaccines, and everybody booed him. So I mean, people think for themselves. Everybody makes their own decisions.
Okay. That's okay. Sure. All right. So, what would you say is Republicans' number one obstruction in regaining seats in Congress at this point? Because these midterms are going to be vitally important. All of these seats up for grabs. We're seeing some redistricting in Colorado that might impact Lauren Boebert's run. She's going to go up against Joe Neguse if they do that. What's the number one obstruction right now? And like, I'm seeing a lot of GOP governors under fire for their COVID stances, like Ron DeSantis, and what's going on in Texas with Greg Abbott. GOP's in a defensive position right now. People are angry about in the way you're trying to impact women's health care, and you're taking away rights from women. So do you see that as like maybe that's your biggest obstruction? What's going on with that? Because government shouldn't, if you're going to use the position that government shouldn't mandate the vaccines and they shouldn't participate in the vaccines, why do you think it's okay for government to tell a woman what she can and cannot do with her own body because they don't do it to men?
You're speaking about abortion, obviously, right?
I'm speaking about women's health care. I'm speaking about government not interfering in anybody's body autonomy, male or female. If you and I decided we wanted to get an elective procedure, you wanted to get a vasectomy for whatever your reasons were, literally no one would stop you.
Right.
Your doctor would discuss with you your options.
Yeah.
As women do when they go for an abortion.
Yeah.
But your doctor would ultimately not stop you. It is your decision because it is your body, and what you do with it is your choice.
Right.
So, what makes you different from me as an American tax-paying citizen? Why is your medical decision yours? My medical decision is not mine. And then you equivocate that with mask wearing.
Are you talking specifically about abortion? You're jumping all around here.
I'm not really. I'm trying to draw that direct corollary because Republican stances, big government should only do certain things.
Sure.
But then you are micromanaging women's health care. At the same time, you're trying to micromanage mask and vaccine and all of that. But it's all connected because it's all connected through health care. So, if your position is that vaccines should not be mandated, masks should not be mandated, then why should the government mandate anything that goes on inside my body when it would never mandate anything that goes on inside of yours?
I don't think they should.
So you believe in a woman's right to choose?
Now we're on abortion. So no, I don't think you should be able to get an abortion.
Why?
Because that's not your body.
Yes, it is. It's inside my body, and
it has a heartbeat. I mean, it's a child.
Not at conception. It does not have a heartbeat, and it does not have a heartbeat at 6 weeks, and it does not have a heartbeat at 8 weeks. It normally does not have a heartbeat until between 9 and 11 weeks. So that would maybe be the earliest that you could talk about heartbeat and that it has a being, has a soul, if you want to. But the law in Texas is antiquated beyond. It removes all body autonomy from all women, all of them. When men are the source of 100% of pregnancies, you cause 100% wanted or unwanted. We can't do it by ourselves. Even if we went to a sperm bank, still need the sperm.
Right.
Can't magically make a baby without you.
Right.
Why is there no onus on men for unwanted pregnancies? There's none.
I think there should be.
You think there should be? Okay. Yeah. So if there is an
you shouldn't be able to abandon your kid. I don't think
no one's talking about abandoning a child.
You shouldn't be able to kill a kid. You shouldn't be able to walk away from a kid.
It's not a kid yet. It's a clump of cells. It's a clump of cells inside your body.
I just disagree on that.
There's no heartbeat at conception. It's not a child yet. It is a clump of cells that, if left alone, will become one.
Yeah.
If left alone, if that's what you want. So
Right.
I'm just going to speak from my personal experience. I am the mother of 2 grown boys. I have never had to make the choice, and I'm grateful that I never had to make the choice
Sure.
of whether or not to take a pregnancy to term. I'm very lucky that I'd never had to make that choice, and I'm grateful. But I'm also grateful that I could have made that choice safely and legally if I had to. That is all women are asking for, to have the autonomy to make all of their own decisions regarding what goes on inside of their bodies as well as what goes on outside of their bodies, which is what men have enjoyed forever. That's equality. That's true equality. We don't get that from the Republican Party. So government only became interested in that when it combined with the rise of the evangelicals having influence over the Republican Party. So if you can say that you believe masks are a choice and vaccines are a choice, where does the line, why do you get to draw the line over where medical decisions are made?
Because it involves a life. I mean, that's where it's
But
at.
the mother's life.
You can do whatever you
It's
want
a woman's life.
up until it's a life. I mean, it's a kid. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
But
I
it's
think- I
not
think we
your
just- I think we
decision
just
to decide
fundamentally-
when that is. It's not your decision. It's not the government's decision. It's
the
a
mo-
woman's decision
it's
with
not
her
the mother-
doctor.
It's not the mother's decision either.
It is, though, because it's
It's
happening
definitely not.
inside her
It's
body.
definitely not the doctor's decision either.
It is.
Until we can come up with the technology to poll the unborn to see if they want the chance to live or not. But there's no consent there. There's no
So-
choice.
but it's really
so
easy.
this idea that we can just take the kid's life and that's the woman's choice, that just doesn't make any sense.
But it's not a child's life yet.
Yes, it is.
No, it's like not when it is a clump of cells that has not. If it is not viable to live outside of the womb,
But then you could say that we can kill up to like 6, 7. I mean, like,
no, we're not talking about killing.
but
We're
then-
talking
yes,
about.
No, but that's what it is. That's
No, we're not. We're not talking about that. And when people talk about the the born alive thing, nobody is murdering a baby born alive. Nobody is doing
But
that.
the baby can't survive on its own, so why can't you kill it?
Okay, there's a difference between getting an abortion and a baby who has come out of a woman's body, right? We understand that there's
No,
two
because
different
it's the
things.
same thing.
It's not the same
It's the same
thing.
thing.
It's not the same thing because there are different rules. I'm holding a baby. If I'm holding a baby,
Who made the rules and what say did the baby have in it?
because
Or the clump of cells?
a clump of cells cannot live viably by itself.
Right.
Cancer cells can't live by themselves outside the body. No cells can live by themselves outside the body
But
unless they're
but
cultivated.
The cells that make human life, though, are unique.
They are, but they also aren't considered a human life until there is a viable heartbeat and it can survive outside of the womb. These are just,
Texas law is heartbeat law, isn't it?
which is so wrong because so many women don't even know they're pregnant by 6 weeks. They don't. I didn't. When I was pregnant with my first child, I had no idea until about 8-ish weeks. You have to skip at least 2 periods before you're even aware.
Right.
So Texas removes that because if a woman doesn't even know she's pregnant, then she gets penalized for something she didn't know about, and somebody else can turn her in and get $10,000 for it, that people can bounty hunt women, is wrong.
I agree with you on that.
Okay.
On the
Okay.
the bounty part.
The bounty part is
we
wrong.
Don't, we don't need to make it punitive.
So
don't
that
need
you would
punitive.
want removed.
We just need to make abortions like we don't need abortion on demand. I disagree with
We
you.
also
that it's a
don't need
woman-
government deciding
I
when abortion is and is not okay.
We need government protecting all life.
No, we don't.
Period.
No, we don't.
So,
What
but,
we-
but why does someone get to decide who lives and who dies?
Well, they don't. That
Choice. Isn't that what choice is?
Then you support pro-choice. Then you are pro-choice for everything. You can't be pro-choice about one part of medicine and not pro-choice about another part of medicine.
When it comes to life.
It's all medicine, but all
I'm
medicine is
pro-choice
life.
when it comes to vaccines and masks too.
But that's all part of life. It's all science. So
And
how does one part?
I think the kid should get the option to live. There's no choice in the pro-choice. In the pro-choice, when you're talking about abortion, choice is just a very misleading word because the child has no choice.
It's not about the child. It's about the mother's health and about the mother's life.
Sure, health is a different story. If there's like, hey, the mom might die, or we do the abortion, that's completely different.
So
That's
you're
a
okay
medical
with
procedure.
that. So what's interesting to me is how it can be micromanaged and pulled apart and broken down into semantics and the minutia of it. What it comes down to is that the government is trying to control women, period, and there is no similar law anywhere in any state in history that has done anything similar to men. when men cause 100% of pregnancies, wanted or unwanted. No one regulates, no one demands vasectomies to be reversed when you're ready to reproduce. So if there is ever going to be true equality in this country, women and men must be governed in the exact same way in every single state and in every single county, or else we don't have true equality in this country. And this country was founded that all are created equal.
Right.
So why are more equal than others? There's that disparity.
I don't see how it takes away that equality.
You don't. You are good, but what you do when you tell a woman
because
how
the flip side of that, what if the man wants to have the child and the woman's able to terminate the child? Now you're saying the guy doesn't have a choice in that either.
That's their personal discussion. That's not for the government to decide.
So both the men and the women at some point in this have been deprived of some form of choice.
No,
and
that's
the baby ultimately has been deprived of any choice whatsoever.
But it's not a baby yet. And
Texas is a heartbeat.
Again, Texas is antiquated because again, most women don't know they're pregnant at 6 weeks, and it is incredibly rare for a heartbeat to be detected as early as 6 weeks. It's rare. So if Texas wanted to do this, 6 weeks is extreme. It's extreme. And when abortion is allowed up to a certain amount of weeks without any kind of detriment to the mother's health or the fetus, why do you think Texas was being that restrictive when it's clear, like, science is on the side of the mother? And to call women host bodies is also really disrespectful because no one calls a man. I
didn't call anybody host body.
No. But the former Republican congressman from Florida that's starting to be a narrative that women are being called host bodies, that we're just supposed to be vessels to birth, like in The Handmaid's Tale, and we're not being seen as humans who contribute to society, which is the essence of The Handmaid's Tale, which is why people are making those jokes about Texas. So just getting the essence, you are for personal choice when it comes to masks and vaccines. You are against personal choice when it comes to abortion.
I'm against abortion.
You're against abortion in any situation?
I disagree with this choice narrative.
Okay, but you are okay with abortion if it would impact the mother's health?
If there's some scenario where like the mom is going to die,
and it's save the baby, save the mom.
Yeah, because that's not being done at an abortion clinic. That's being done by an MD who's using it as a medical procedure to preserve that life. And like then it's on the consenting adult. Then it's on the mom. It's on the partner and the doctor, like, to make the best decision. It's not a form of birth control at that point.
So you think that people use abortion as a form of birth control?
Yeah, they do. Okay. That's not every. I'm not saying that's every single.
So fair enough, because a lot of people might see it that way.
Accidental pregnancies, sure.
Do you agree that maybe the best thing to do to prevent abortion is to have better sex education in schools? Because if you inform, you take away a lot of the nebulous stuff around it, and you're just straightforward, and you teach children from a very early age to respect their bodies and respect other people's bodies. And
that's what I got like in the 90s.
Yeah. So don't you think that maybe public sex education from an early age?
The problem is
public
sex. The problem is public sex ed has gone completely and totally off the rails. The stuff that's being taught nowadays is way different than like what I got in like the early 90s.
What do you think's being taught now?
When I got it, if you look at the Planned Parenthood sex ed curriculum, there's very little about it in it that's like, hey, this is how like you could accidentally get someone pregnant if people are exploring and like kids do. There's very little of that, and there's a ton about the transgender narrative and gender dysphoria and all that type of stuff. There's a lot of messing with different gender roles. There's a lot of messing with different pronouns and all that type of stuff. And I think a lot of it's has a very different political agenda.
Okay, but going back to like the transgender community, do you recognize transgender as valid, like a valid life? If someone introduced themselves to you and says hi and said, my name is Jamie, and I'm a trans. Sure. Not Jamie Herrera, but
whatever.
My name is Janie, and I'm a trans woman. Sure. Would you see her as a woman?
Yeah. And
you would not misgender. You don't.
If I did, it'd be accidental.
Okay.
So, but here's the thing: like, if I meet someone individually and they say, "Hey, call me this," like, okay, fine, that's fine. As a basic, respectful human being, you know. I would. That's what I'm asking I would do that. As far as like massive amounts of like government projects and concessions and stuff like that, I do think there's an issue there.
Great. Leading to that, I know that there is here in Vancouver there is a Democratic challenger who is a trans woman. I don't know that she's going to get very far. I think your biggest challenger, should you make it through the primary, your challenger will be Brent. But I'm curious about the other challenger. We have another challenger to Jamie Herrera Butler, who's Heidi St. John. She's MAGA like you are. She's maybe a little bit more, I think, Christian conservative leaning. But I do know that you had an agreement that whichever of you got the endorsement from Donald Trump, the other would drop out, put their resources behind the other, and be a united front so that you could get Jamie out of there and get your candidate. Heidi's not doing that.
Right.
So, what happened?
Good for Jamie.
What happened? Yeah, it is, because the two of you are going to be fighting each other, and Jamie can kind of hang back, which was not your intention. So, like, you're raising all of this money, and you've got all of this momentum behind you, but if Heidi splits your vote, like, what are you going to do about that? What's your approach there?
So my single-minded focus from the first day I got into this is Jamie Herrera Butler. It continues to be that. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have partisan primaries here. I think a lot of people, when they see this race, they don't realize how our elections work here in Washington, because it's a little different, the jungle primaries. But there's no chance that the Republicans will have a chance to stand against each other and actually have a traditional, what most people view as a traditional election race. We just don't have that. So the more Republicans we have, it dilutes the votes.
Right.
And it really works out in the favor of the incumbent who has all the name recognition, et cetera. So I'm focused on talking to as many people as I can so they can hear what I stand for, learn who I am, and then I'm staying focused on Jamie Herrera Butler. I hope Heidi adheres to our agreement, honors our agreement.
Doesn't sound like she's going to.
Doesn't sound like
really
it.
Doesn't.
Unfortunately.
What about debates? You interested?
Absolutely, 100%.
You'll face Brent if he challenges you?
Yeah.
Great. That's something else he wanted to know. I think we're good. I think I've got, for now, but what I want to do is this is, to me, an evolving conversation.
Yeah.
Because where we are today is not where we're going to be as you get.
Yeah, things move fast.
As they do. So you're going to be available and open?
Yeah, we can do more.
Great. Awesome. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you think is really important for people to know about you? And as you move forward, you've already said that you're concerned about the results of the 2022 election. So let's say it's November. This is where I want to end with you. It's November 2022. You've made it. You're up against Jamie. Jamie wins. Are you going to contest that?
I mean, like, how much power do I have at that point? Does it matter if I contest it? So
I'm just asking.
So whether I win or whether I contest it, I support a full forensic audit.
Already?
Yeah, 100%. Our election system right here, especially in Washington State, we've been doing it for so long with the mail-out ballots and the Dominion and other non-open source code tabulation machines. It's sketchy.
Okay.
It's wrought with fraud. So unless we're getting massive amounts of reform between now and 22, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Actually, there's one more thing I want to ask you. You're going to be photographed with Matt Gaetz a whole bunch today. Are you at all concerned about the optics of that?
No.
Okay.
That's why I invited him here.
You personally invited him?
I guess. I mean, well, not really. I mean, it's Matt. He does kind of what he wants. He's a fairly big name. So he offered to come out here.
Oh, he offered?
He offered to come out here, and I said I would be honored.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not at all concerned about the optics, though?
Not. Matt's got a great record fighting for America first.
Does he?
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You're aware of the reputation, though. Like, I'm not talking to someone who thinks nothing's going on. You're aware of his reputation.
I'm aware of the accusations that were made about him and the indictments that are going on at DOJ against the people that made them.
And are you aware that he's also going to get subpoenaed by the Select Committee, the January 6th Select Committee? They're all.
I think every conservative, every America First conservative is getting subpoenaed.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the January 6th Select Committee? It's bipartisan. There's 3 Republicans on it.
Yeah, the Republicans on it. So, what I want to see happen is I do want to see a full adjudication of not just the election. That's a separate issue. But then I think we do need a full January 6th commission to
we have one.
Declassify absolutely every single minute of footage from the inside.
That's what they're doing.
I wrote a whole op-ed about this. We need to call to the carpet, put them on record, the head of the FBI, Washington, D.C. field office, the CIA, the Department of Homeland Security, National Capitol Police, and then D.C. Metro Police. And we need to know.
Oh, they're all going to come.
We need to know exactly how many undercover agents, how many sources, and how many confidential informants were part of the January 6th planning. Because we had intelligence. The FBI released intelligence memos leading up to that there was going to be an assault. the intimation there is that they had people on the inside that were part of that planning. However, in the some odd 200 to 500 people that have been arrested and the very few that have actually been charged, no one's been charged of being in a leadership role. We have prominent members of some of these militias, like Stuart Rhodes of the Oath Keepers, who was questioned briefly by the FBI and then released. That guy's not arrested. He was seen directing people to different entry points.
Oh, they're not done.
On the day. I hope
they're
they're
not done.
I hope they're not. But where are all the unidentified co-conspirators who were in leadership roles?
That'd be great to know. I believe that they have. Well, I mean, there's phone records and tweets and.
Yeah, I think we should get to the full bottom of what happened on January 6th. Good.
100%. So you think that Republicans should?
I think we're poorly represented right now.
Okay.
On the commission.
Okay.
And these commissions have a horrible track record. Look at the 9/11 commission.
So
look
fair
at
enough,
the
but
War Commission.
There was originally a bipartisan committee put together that the Republicans voted against. So then they formed the other committee, and then the Republicans got mad that there were no Republicans on it. So then Nancy Pelosi invited Republicans, and then it turns out, and then Kevin McCarthy tried to get Jim Jordan appointed to the commission. Then it came out that Jim Jordan was on the phone with Donald Trump on January 6th. So to have him placed on that commission, that's shady. It's treasonous because
That he was on the phone with Trump?
Because he was in cahoots. Liz Cheney said to Jim Jordan, "You
Trump,
did this."
With Trump doing what? March peacefully and patriotically?
Who was marching peacefully? Nobody was marching peacefully.
Those people were already there. I mean,
They were invited. Didn't Donald Trump invite them?
The whole timeline.
Donald Trump invited them and said, "Come on down, January 6th. We'll be wild."
He did. And then, like,
We'll be wild.
How many different rallies has Trump held, and how many of them resulted in violence up to that day?
Well, he never invited anybody to overturn an election before. That was unique to that day. That day where Ted Cruz stood up and riled everybody up, and Mo Brooks and Paul, everyone's riling everybody up to go fight and win. It's the same kind of violence we're seeing here. It's just larger numbers of violence. They had matching T-shirts saying Civil War with the date. It's not cool.
But how many?
Not cool. It's
how
like
many, how many of them were armed, and like where's the actual planning?
Most of them.
No, but no one's been charged of carrying.
Jacob Chansley was charged and with.
Is he the bear spray guy in the backpack?
He's not the bear spray guy. He's the QAnon shaman.
Oh, that guy.
That guy.
The footage of him.
Those are the people.
The footage of him is the Capitol Police walking him into the chamber and saying, "Hey, man, go easy."
Nah, that's. He's also howling. He also just got charged.
He's acting like a lunatic.
Tell me why it's okay for these people to act this way. Why is it okay for them to act like that? Like, these are your people.
If they acted violently,
they did.
Then they should be. Then the ones that acted violently, I'm fine with charging.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Can you say the same thing about Antifa and BLM burning down cities?
No, I can't, because the meaning of Antifa is anti-fascism.
Because they have a clever name?
No,
that's the reason why they can burn down cities?
It's not clever. It's a real word. Anti-fascism.
Okay.
If you are not against fascism, you don't belong in the United States.
Then you can burn down cities?
No.
You can destroy
Nobody's
Portland?
Burning down cities.
You can, yeah.
I live here. I live here.
My parents still live downtown.
I live here.
Yeah, I've been down Portland plenty of times.
I've been down.
The downtown is destroyed.
I mean,
by the riots, the downtown's destroyed. Come on.
It wasn't just one group of people down there. And Trump sent in his federal people who were unmarked officers who were throwing people in the back of unmarked vehicles and disappearing them off the streets. That's also not okay.
Where are they now? They in like Gitmo?
I have no idea.
None of them got charged, if anything, because the DA is all back down.
Ted Wheeler is completely inept. He is not doing a good job. I honestly don't know who can come in and do anything about Portland, but